Well, I'm very grateful to the Manhattan Institute and to all the good friends I see here. And I'm very happy to be to be speaking to the audience of the C-SPAN, which is here tonight, and will extend my remarks across America in the kind of style of nonpartisanship which we like to see in the American media. I don't know, we always see it. I've just been excluded from CNN. I was supposed to, it's a great loss to me, because I wanted to tell those people a few things they hadn't heard before. But I've been excluded from it because I'm told I'm an extremist. I tend to refer to the President of the United States as a stealth socialist, and that's considered extremism. So I think maybe I ought to appear hat in hand before CNN and ask them which words in the vocabulary I'm allowed to apply to the stealth socialist, amongst friends. But at any rate, I'd like to make a few observations about my new book, The Death of Liberalism. Historic errors have a habit of slipping away, with few people noticing their passing. The Holy Roman Empire had lost its hold on the potentates of Europe, yet it was years before anyone discerned that the empire was no longer holy or Roman or even an empire. There were a lot of colorful uniforms around and even helmets and ceremonial swords, but no one took any notice of them, not even the swords. The empire had evanesced to a gaggle of principalities and later to nation states. Nowadays, Catholic Europe might still be mentioned in some remote geography classes as Catholic Europe, but Europe has not been the political domain of powerful bishops and popes for over a century. Even the power of the British Empire never really recovered from World War I. And when Churchill said, "I have not become the king's first minister in order to preside over the liquidation of the British Empire," that liquidation was well underway. Here in America, there are institutions and belief systems that long ago lost their clout. Take the urban machine. Doubtless there are Americans who still believe in the legendary power of the urban machine. Yet, with few exceptions, urban machines lost their grip on cities long ago. Tammany Hall, R.I.P. So it is with the passing of liberalism. In my lifetime, I have seen liberalism dissolve from an all-powerful Camorra with its hold unopposed on government, the bureaucracy, the educational establishment, even the corporate world. It became a feeble thing with alternative influences challenging it in practically every department. Today's liberals are veritable zombies, holding out where they can, with ever more fresh troops of conservatives, free marketeers, and globalists, challenging them everywhere. Always their solutions to problems at hand are a croak from the grave. Spend more money, tax the upper class, retreat into the cocoon where no one ever disagrees with liberals, and an alternative never exists to their arguments. Recall the zombies' astonishment when Obamacare was opposed by a majority of the American people and then is questioned by the Supreme Court. Sure, the liberals' living dead are out there, the zombies, as I call them, but they have been diminished to the point of senescence. True liberals like Hubert Humphrey, Pat Moynihan, Ed Koch, or their intellectual components at the universities are all dead or in retirement. Their kind of liberal vigor has not been replenished. We have lived through the death of liberalism, and it is time that we acknowledge as much. Liberalism is dead. Americans today who have missed the sad event can be forgiven. There was no national announcement of the end of an era, say on NPR or in the New York Times, or even if there were, few Americans follow these organs of dead liberalism. There was no weeping at the graveside. In fact, there was no graveside. For my part, I did file an obituary in the Wall Street Journal on December 4th, 2010, and now I have elaborated on the charnel occasion in this book, The Death of Liberalism. Perhaps I should stop by the Roosevelt Memorial and leave flowers at the feet of FDR. FDR at least saved the world, and he mixed a swell martini. But now it is time to solemnize the occasion, the death of liberalism. Some years ago, in 2009, to be exact, shortly before conservatism enjoyed its mightiest victory in modern times, a book by Sam Tannenhouse set liberal hearts aflutter. It was titled The Death of Conservatism. You remember it. Some of you read it. It was not unlike my book, except for one thing. It was completely, totally, thunderously wrong. Sam is the editor of the New York Times Book Review, and also at the time was editor of the now defunct Week in Review. And defunct is something that we may apply to the New York Times eventually. One would have thought that he would have hedged his bets. Perhaps he might have ended his title in a question mark. The death of liberalism? The death of conservatism? I mean, once a writer has put a judgment like that between hard covers, it is, so to speak, written in stone. A writer stakes his reputation on a book. No one wants to be laughed at or dismissed as an idiot. Yet Sam wrote The Death of Conservatism emphatically and was roundly congratulated, at least by liberals. He is probably still being congratulated for, I suppose, his heroism. What were the liberals thinking about in 2010 when conservatives filed in to take over the House of Representatives and state legislative chambers all over the country? For Sam's part, he came out with a paperback, The Death of Conservatism, on October 19th, 2010, not exactly a month before the deluge came. All the polls were predicting the deluge, yet he and his fans were, of course, oblivious. This obliviousness was characteristic of liberalism in their last days. It was utterly oblivious to the world around it. It had self-segregated itself, and so at the threshold of its final